Good afternoon. You got to love this space, first of all, right? Rainy day, beautiful, even light. Good thing we have a roof, Chancellor Wrighton? Mark said when we were designing the building that when this was going to be an open courtyard, he goes, in St. Louis, bad idea. So here I stand in front of this great green wall and excited today to say I'm Carmen Colangelo, the Ralph J. Nagel Dean of the Sam Fox School of Design and Visual Arts, and I'm saying the full thing because this might be the last time I say that. So, it's a true pleasure to welcome you to this installation of Meredith Malone as the inaugural Nancy and Kenneth Kranzberg Curator at the Mildred Lane Kemper Art Museum. That sounds beautiful. Yeah. Nancy and Ken's newest gift, which we celebrate today, represents the second endowed position at the Kemper and the first endowed curatorship. That makes today a unique and deeply significant milestone for the museum and for WashU, an achievement that will no doubt advance our standing among the nation's leading art museums. I want to extend a special welcome now to Nancy and Ken. Let's give them a big shout out just to begin. Yeah. You're going to get more shout outs. You don't have to come up yet, Ken. No, not yet. No. We'll do that soon. And then I'd like to welcome their daughter and son-in-law, Marianne and Andy Srenko, right here in the front. So let's hear for them. As well as to Meredith's family, including her partner, Scott, her daughter, Beatrice, and her son, Otis, who has a lot to say. He's right over here, and if they could all wave. He's saving his tough questions for his mom coming up soon. And, of course, Meredith's parents, Andy and Debbie Malone, who are joining us here today from Philadelphia, if we could hear from them as well. Yeah. And, of course, I want to welcome Chancellor Andrew Martin and express my deepest gratitude for his tremendous support and continued investment in the Sam Fox School and the Kemper Art Museum. Let's hear it for our Chancellor, Chancellor Martin. Amazing. This installation is especially meaningful to me because it represents the confluence of great friends and leaders in Nancy and Ken while honoring our closest one of my closest colleagues of 20 years, Meredith Malone. Hard to believe. Yeah. It is an enduring investment in the Kemper Art Museum and reflects the For St. Louis mission that is so central to Chancellor Martin's vision and to the Kranzberg's profound and lasting commitment to the arts in St. Louis. When I was recruited to WashU by Chancellor Wrighton, I believed then, and I believe more than ever, that the Kemper Art Museum is one of the most distinguishing elements of the Sam Fox School. In fact, it was one of the primary reasons I came to WashU. Few schools of art and design can boast such a preeminent collection, exhibition program, and facilities of this caliber. But like all great institutions, the Kemper Art Museum's most vital assets are the people who drive it forward. In 2010, the William T. Kemper Directorship was formally endowed, and Sabina Ekman has held that role with distinction for 16 years. Let's hear it for Sabina Ekman. Today, we build upon that legacy through Nancy and Ken's commitment to sustaining curatorial excellence at the museum and by recognizing Meredith Malone's rigorous scholarship, distinctive curatorial work, which continue to elevate the Kemper as a world-class academic museum. It is extraordinary that Ken and Nancy have made this commitment to ensuring enduring support. They are the consummate believers in investing in the arts. Since their earliest days as champions of Washington University, they have prioritized creative endeavors and the artists and scholars who've led them. Nancy and Ken have been steadfast supporters of the Kemper Art Museum, where Ken serves on the Art Collections Committee in addition to his service on the Sam Fox National Council. The Ken and Nancy Kranzberg Art and Architecture Library opened in 2006, which houses the art special collections, and they have been major supporters of the Dowd Illustration Research Archive, which documents more than 100 years of visual and cultural history. They were among the lead supporters of Annabeth and John Weil, Hall, and before there was even a Sam Fox School, the Nancy Spiritus Kranzberg Studio for the illustrated book was established. The Kranzbergs have a long history of service to Washington University, extending well beyond the Sam Fox School. Nancy, who earned her undergraduate degree at Washington University, received a Dean's Medal of Honor from University Libraries in 1996, a while ago. Yeah, in recognition of her service on its Elliott Society and National Council. As fitting recognition of their lifelong advocacy, Ken and Nancy both received honorary doctorates of fine arts from WashU in 2024. And it was my pleasure to pay tribute to them with our Sam Fox School Dean's Medal in 2025. Nancy and Ken have been equally transformative in their support of the arts beyond WashU and the Sam Fox School. Through the Kranzberg Arts Foundation, they have incubated the careers of countless artists in St. Louis and nurtured a sustainable community-focused arts ecosystem, many in this room. Their service on boards from the Contemporary Art Museum and Slam to Jazz St. Louis and Opera Theater of St. Louis is a testament to the breadth of their vision and commitment. In short, Nancy and Ken are among the most dedicated and visionary leaders. This latest gift, establishing the Kranzberg Curatorship, ensures that the Kemper Art Museum will continue to attract and retain the most talented curators in the field like Meredith. Please join me in thanking Nancy and Ken Kranzberg for their vision, their leadership, and extraordinary generosity. Yeah. Now, Nancy and Ken, please join Chancellor Martin and me up here in the front.
Nancy, Ken, it's so great to be here to celebrate this gift with you this afternoon. Words can't express how deeply grateful we are at WashU for all of your support, and also how deeply grateful St. Louis and the St. Louis arts community is for your support. And so it's my honor to present this shadow box to the two of you. On the medallion it reads, Nancy and Kenneth Kranzberg Curatorship in the Sam Fox School of Design and Visual Arts, in grateful appreciation, presented to Nancy and Kenneth Kranzberg, May 18th, 2026. Thank you both so very much.
Ken, give me my speech.
Whoop, that's the parking ticket.
Okay. Well, I go way back with Meredith Malone, way back. And way back then, she was, I can't remember 3 words. She was beautiful, scholarly, and young. And here we are today, where she's still beautiful, scholarly, and young. And we're so proud to have our names alongside of such a scholarly gal.
Nancy absolutely loves her WashU. She loves her WashU. She's always loved it. We've enjoyed so many shows at the Kemper that are Meredith's responsibility, and it's a great university, and we're proud to have our names be a part of it. I'm proud that she graduated here. My dad went to law school here. Our son-in-law got his undergraduate and MBA here. So we've got a long, many years with WashU.
Thank you. Okay. Whoop.
Welcome everyone again. Thank you again, Nancy and Ken. It is my pleasure today to introduce Dr. Meredith Malone. We have known each other since 2 decades. It really is unbelievable, and have collaborated on many exhibitions, programs, and acquisitions. However, before I introduce Meredith, I would also like to express my deep gratitude to Nancy and Ken Kranzberg for this really very, very meaningful endowment. So thank you so much. One more time. Meredith is a very open-minded and dedicated member of the curatorial team. She's very interested in larger institutional goals, perspectives, and planning. I have experienced her as very eager to bring others along, and I'm impressed by her commitment to actively rethinking of what a university art museum could and should be in the 21st century. I've always experienced her as proactive and eager to consider and reconsider the museum and its programs beyond her own scholarly expertise. I think she is optimistic that the museum can expand its intellectual, geographic, and cultural reach through carefully conceived programs, exhibitions. I do have to use my glasses, I'm so sorry. I tried. That the museum can expand its intellectual, geographic, and cultural reach through carefully conceived programs which will attract academic, local, national, and global audiences alike. Last but not least, she's not only, as we have already heard, a very ambitious curator and a curious scholar, but she really is also very well organized and productive. Without her agendas, I don't know how our meetings would go. I know that she is too a very well thought of collaborator and colleague. Let me go deeper. She joined the museum in 2006, initially as a postdoctoral fellow, and was promoted to assistant curator in 2007, to associate curator in 2010, to full curator in 2020, and to senior curator now in 2026. During the last 20 years, she has worked in all curatorial areas: art acquisitions, permanent collection installations, temporary smaller exhibitions, and larger research exhibitions, as well as publications. She also taught courses in the Department of Art History and Archaeology and advised curatorial interns. In addition, she contributed in significant ways to the development of the museum's 10th Strategic Plan 2023 and its Collection Development Plan 2023. As curator, she has organized, curated, and co-curated a myriad of exhibitions, many of them accompanied by important publications. Highlights, and that's all what I can mention here, include Chance Aesthetics 2009-10, Thomas Saraceno Cloud Specific 2011, To See Without Being Seen, Contemporary Art in Drone Warfare 2016, Multiplied Edition Mad and the Transformable Work of Art 1959 to 1965 in 2020, Nicole Miller, A Sound, A Signal, The Circus 2022, Adam Pendleton, To Divide By 2023. The accompanying catalog was awarded the Midwest Art History Society Outstanding Monographic Catalog of 2024. And most recently, she curated Seeds, Container for a World to Come in 2025. She currently works on a large-scale monographic exhibition and publication on Analia Saban, co-organized with the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Her work is also frequently supported by grants, including from the Andy Warhol Foundation, Sotheby's, and the Carl and Marilyn Thoma Foundation. Lastly, Meredith serves as an affiliate at the Center for the Environment at WashU and at CRE2, and she is a member of the board of the Gateway Foundation. Please join me in welcoming Meredith here and Chancellor Martin both to the stage. I'm sorry.
Meredith, we are all so happy to be here and to celebrate your 20 years of service to Washington University, all that you've accomplished at the Kemper, and all that's yet to come. So on behalf of all of us who are gathered here today, it's my honor to present this medallion to you. On the obverse it reads, Nancy and Kenneth Kranzberg, Curator, Sam Fox School of Design and Visual Arts. And on the reverse, Meredith Malone, May 18th, 2026. Meredith, congratulations. Okay. What's the hard
You never
part?
know how to do it.
All right, I think we got it.
Okay.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Do I say it up here now? I need my glasses. I'm not going to pretend that I don't. So, all right. Well, I want to thank you, Chancellor Martin, Dean Colangelo, Sabina, and Nancy and Ken, of course, for this immense honor of being the inaugural recipient of this endowed curatorship. I'd like to reiterate just how much I admire you both, Nancy and Ken, and to acknowledge how critical your generous support is to the museum and to humanities-informed education here at WashU. More broadly, your commitment to fostering a vibrant arts ecosystem in St. Louis through your exemplary philanthropy and through the Kranzberg Arts Foundation is truly inspiring. Your work joyfully shines a light on all the incredible talent here in St. Louis in visual art, but also music and dance and literature and performance. On a personal note, I have to say your senses of humor, your curiosity, and your commitment to a creative life together really makes it such a pleasure to be in your company. I thank you so much for this generous endowment. But I also want to take this opportunity to share my deep appreciation for Carmen Colangelo and for Sabina Ekman, for your support, your mentorship, and your friendship over the past 2 decades here at WashU. I want to say how grateful I am to my partner Scott, to my daughter Beatrice, to my son Otis, to my mother Debbie, and to my father Andy for your support and encouragement, and for patiently visiting oh so many museums over the years while gamely discussing what we find engaging and exciting. Lastly, I'd like to recognize my many colleagues, both past and present, who are here today and joining virtually. What a pleasure it is to work and create and problem solve with each of you on so many compelling projects. Now this evening I'm going to share with you a few key through lines in my art historical scholarship and the deep connections to my 20-year career here as a curator at the Kemper Art Museum. My specific areas of research have been fostered and informed, I need to change my slide, by the museum's outstanding permanent collection, its progressive program of acquisitions, and its commitment to excellence in exhibition making. My scholarship is driven by 2 core areas of ongoing exploration and preoccupation. It's post-World War II art in Western Europe and the United States, and global contemporary art. Within the field of post-war art, I focused extensively on the experimental neo-avant-garde practices of the New Realists, an internationally diverse group of Paris-based artists working in the late 1950s and the early 1960s during a moment of economic prosperity in France. In my second area of focus, the field of global contemporary art, I extend my strong interest in experimental artistic approaches with an emphasis on practices that push the boundaries of how we understand and define the art object and the role of the artist in society. I'm especially attracted to artists who consider the exhibition itself as less of a frame or a container than an open proposition and an artistic form in which the viewer is implicated as a knowing participant. At their best, such exhibitions sharpen our perception and reroute our understanding of the past, present, and the future while creating space for viewers to exercise visual and critical literacy. I'll begin with a discussion of my post-war work before offering up a few key examples of some of my most rewarding collaborations with contemporary artists. In each of the projects I'll highlight here this evening, the Kemper has served as a powerful platform for open exploration and dialogue, acting as something akin to an experimental laboratory for artistic investigation and experiential learning. My work on the post-war period began in graduate school with an in-depth study of the New Realists. These artists were roughly contemporaries of U.S. pop artists, but they've received scant scholarly attention in the U.S. relative to their historical import. Members were loosely united by their rejection of late modernist painting, as exemplified by American abstract expressionism and European art informel. They focused instead on the everyday. Members created object-based assemblages and performative exhibitions that questioned traditional notions of artistic authorship, production, and distribution, while offering critical reflections on post-war daily life. They ripped posters from the streets of Paris to create abstract compositions. They created shooting paintings by covering found objects in sacks of paint with plaster before firing at the assemblages with a rifle and causing the paint to bleed streaks of vibrant color. They glued chance arrangements of everyday objects to whatever surface on which they were found. They wrapped objects in plastic and fabric. They compressed cars found in scrapyards and using giant crushers and accumulated trash in plastic vitrines. Through their performative practices, the New Realists shifted the paradigm for artistic creation from private moments of inspiration in a studio space to public procedures that had to be experienced by artist and audience alike. At stake was nothing less than a radical shift away from the autonomous art object to an emphasis on process and reception. I've been particularly fascinated by the work of Swiss-Romanian artist Daniel Sperry, a member of the New Realists who created what he called snare pictures or trap pictures. And now these are works created by arresting a random moment in time by gluing down objects to the surface on which they were found. In this image, taken in Paris in 1960, Daniel Sperry stands next to a trap picture made up of an assortment of everyday items, including a book, several bowls and cups, a box of matches, an ashtray, and a bottle of wine. Sperry often claimed that his trap pictures demonstrated his lack of interest in individual creative accomplishment. Instead, he favored collaboration and openness to unforeseen situations. When hung vertically on a wall, his trap pictures were meant to aggravate and activate viewers, provoking change in their perception of the world. His drive to preserve these accidental situations and everyday objects also reveals a strong desire to assert control over an increasingly unwieldy system of objects in an emerging post-war consumer society. Other members of the New Realists grappled with the abundance of consumer objects by appropriating the display strategies of the commodity. Christo's wrapped objects speak to a preoccupation with consumer packaging, while Armand's accumulations of trash gesture towards the seemingly limitless expansion and repetition of production and waste. The New Realists' immersion in the stuff of everyday life led many art critics and scholars to denigrate their work as an art of collusion. Criticism often focused on their apparent liquidation of the oppositional functions of high art through an uncritical embrace of consumer society. These artists were saddled with the label neo-avant-garde. They were described as an inauthentic reformulation of the radical avant-garde, namely the Dada, Surrealism, and Russian constructivism. But it's exactly their seemingly compromised position that I continue to find fascinating, exploring how these artists expose the contradictions of cultural production and a market economy, not by attempting to transcend them, but by overtly enacting them. In assuming a rather ambivalent position, they drew critical attention to the ambiguities facing post-war society, including questions of technological liberation versus social repression, and active participation versus passive consumption. Now, the New Realists were among the most prolific practitioners of performance-based events and environmental installations. Their action spectacles and environments, as they called them, some of which I'm showing you here in this slide, insisted on a more experiential model of artistic practice with an emphasis on play. They employed environmental installations to append aesthetic and social protocols. The group exhibition Dillaby, short for Dynamic Labyrinth, is one ambitious example. In the summer of 1962, the director of the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam invited 6 artists, including 4 members of the New Realists and the American artist Robert Rauschenberg, to spend 3 weeks converting the museum into a veritable funhouse. The installation invited visitors to smell, touch, shoot, climb, and dance their way through the exhibition. Sperry's expansion of his concept of the trap painting through collective gastronomic events staged at various galleries across Europe, in which he humorously equated the entire process of making, displaying, and consuming art to the running of a restaurant, is another key example. Beginning with the Restaurant de la Galerie J in Paris in 1963, he hosted banquets assuming the role of Chef Daniel and enlisted art critics to act as waiters. At the end of each evening's meal, the progression from order to disorder was documented in the form of a trap picture. Now, Sperry's engagement with performance and accident inspired in part one of my first major Malone exhibitions at the Kemper Art Museum. Chance Aesthetics from 2009 examined the use of chance processes in modern art as a way to challenge assumptions about what constitutes a work of art and the role of the artist as an original creator. Moving from the beginning of the 20th century through the early 1970s, the exhibition and its catalog explored the tension between chance and control, between the rejection of accepted notions of autonomy and originality, and the reassertion of authorship that lies at the heart of all artistic creation employing chance. The checklist spanned many artistic disciplines and mediums, showcasing works by members of avant-garde and neo-avant-garde movements, including Dada, Surrealism, Abstract Expressionism, Fluxus, and New Realism. As the exhibition demonstrated, artists have called on chance to pursue a variety of aims, including anti-art agendas, bypassing the conscious mind and transforming the way reality is perceived, and radical programs meant to open the artwork to the random flow of everyday life. The checklist included some artworks key artworks from the Kemper's permanent collection, including Surrealist artist Max Ernst's Eye of Silence from 1943 and 44. To create this work, Ernst used the technique of decalcomania, which involves covering a smooth surface with a layer of paint, and then you press it on another surface to create these sort of unforeseen markings that the artist can then choose to work up how they see fit. Jean Dubuffet's Bearded Head from 1959 is another key piece. Dubuffet found this piece of driftwood covered in barnacles on a beach. The artist performed only a minimal amount of intervention to heighten the human resemblance that he found in that natural material. And one of my favorite works from the exhibition was this piece by the Swiss artist Dieter Roth. It's titled Big Cloud from 1971. Roth often used organic materials in his works, including cheese, bananas, sausage, chocolate, and in this case, mayonnaise. He would let his compositions develop through the natural process of decay. So Roth used decomposition and the chance transformations that came with it to really parody this sort of serious tone and preservationist impulse that he perceived in the post-war art world. The work humorously calls to mind landscape painting with its reference to a cloud, but it also elicits sensations of attraction and repulsion. And I can still remember opening the crate. This work came from Germany, and we opened this crate in 2009, and it's still 40-year-old mayonnaise still held quite a pungent aroma. So, now, the use of food was ultimately a way for Roth to champion continuous transformation in opposition to the stagnation of institutional art. Now, the work of Daniel Sperry has continued to fascinate me, particularly his unique role as a prominent artistic practitioner, as well as a publisher, a curator, and a key connector within the field of expanded arts emerging in the post-war period. In 2020, I mounted a major international Malone exhibition exploring the groundbreaking role played by Sperry's inventive publishing enterprise, Edition Mat. Edition Mat is short for the multiplication of transformable art, so art that moves, was established in Paris in 1959 as the first series of multiples to be produced and broadly distributed. The exhibition and its publication explored the simultaneous rise of multiples and kinetic art in the post-war era. Now, multiples are just small-scale, three-dimensional objects issued in edition. Sperry's goal with Edition Mat was to democratize the distribution of art by producing affordable art objects that could be optically, as you see here in this example of a work by Jesus Rafael Soto, but they could also be moved mechanically or physically. So active audience participation was the point. Jean Tinguely's Constant Indéterminé exemplifies the concept of this kinetic multiple. It consists of, you can see here, a small electrical motor mounted on a board whose vertical axis is equipped with a small clip. You just need to attach a small object, anything of your choice, and once the power is turned on, the object rotates and its contours rapidly change. Now, during the course of my research on this project, which spanned quite a few years, the museum was able to acquire several works from Edition Mat for its permanent collection, several of which are now on display in our first floor William T. Kemper Gallery, if you want to check them out later this evening. The exhibition, which lives on in our beautifully designed publication brought together over 100 works by an international and cross-generational network of artists experimenting with kinetic and optical or op art. Now, that critical ambivalence that I mentioned earlier as a core aspect of New Realism, in which the artists drew attention through their performative exhibition practices to these contradictions of cultural production and a market economy, is also present here in this project of Edition Matte. The artworks of Edition Matte invited participation from the viewer, but the possibilities that such involvement afforded often remain double-edged. Some of the questions the exhibition asked include, what kind of subjects did these transformable multiples envision? Creators with a real sense of agency, or users relegated to programmed interventions? Did the idea of continuous transformation essential to these works stem from a position of promise or one of anxiety? Such questions illuminate the stakes of Edition Matte and its redefinition of the work of art in a post-war age of affluence. Now, in working with the global contemporary art, I extend my interest in experimental artistic practices with a focus on work that critically reflects on our current moment of social, environmental, and technological change. I'm drawn to artists who, like the New Realists, probe that relationship between artist, artwork, and viewer. The next few projects I will discuss employ the exhibition as an open proposition, sparking active and imaginative dialogues around core ideas of being and inhabiting the world. In 2011, contemporary Argentine artist Tomas Saraceno effectively transformed the Gehring Gallery at the Kemper into a laboratory-like space full of prototypes that reflect both materially and theoretically his exploration of a cloud city. His Cloud City is a visionary project for an ecologically sustainable city in the sky that consists of a series of transparent, bubble-like cells fueled by wind and solar energy that migrate and recombine as freely as clouds in the sky. Now, Saraceno was initially trained as an architect, and his artistic practice combines the conventions of art, architecture, and the natural sciences. Like pioneering artists and architects before him, including Buckminster Fuller and Archie Graham and Julia Kosice, his works conceptualize modules for living capable of prompting social and political transformation. His Cloud City is unabashedly utopian. It projects a future in which the social conditions of people living in displaced environments today might be replaced by global citizenship. At the same time, the array of drawings and collages and inflatable sculptures, models, and prototypes that the artist produces can all be understood as acting out a material and a spatial investigation of issues including sustainability, mobility, globalization, and collectivity in the present. Saraceno's structures and installations like the one that hangs permanently in the Kemper's lobby, a unique site-specific commission created in 2019 titled Cosmic Filaments, which was generously supported by the William T. Kemper Foundation, exist as poetic and performative platforms that ask more questions than they answer. The exhibition at the Kemper, which titled Cloud Specific, was co-organized with Igor Marjanovic, former professor of architecture at WashU. It was anchored by one cloud module, a polyhedron-shaped prototype for a single modular unit of the artist's visionary cluster community. Now, this prototype measured 5 meters in diameter, and it was made using aluminum beams that were fitted with a large see-through pillow of air, and it was clad with multiple solar cookers that was sort of proffered the suggestion of some kind of domestic use. The visitors could mount a few steps of a ladder. You can see here the prototype, the ladder, to then float on air as a young Raphael Holtz did. So this is a small version of what Saraceno would achieve just a few years later in 2013 at K21 in Dusseldorf, where visitors could don jumpsuits and float 25 meters in the air. So this is a artist rendering, but this is an image of what it actually felt like. I think it just came down a few years ago. So one cloud module visually connotes the provisional, the flexible, and the organic. Yet it is only when lying suspended above the ground that you start to grasp the implications of inhabiting one of Saraceno's spheres. I can tell you from my own personal experience that there is this sort of playful excitement that comes from participating as installations, but they are also fairly precarious. For all the potential for freedom of movement and interconnectivity, there is also a strong impression of instability and unease. At the Kemper, participants had to sign a waiver, remove their shoes, their belts, and any loose personal items just to enter one cloud module. It thus raised issues not only of safety and security, but also of liability and accountability. These effects are a significant part of the work's aesthetic impact, opening up a complex knot of concerns about play, participation, and the conventions of social engineering. It's raining again. Saraceno is one of a cadre of contemporary artists exploring the relationship between art and architecture, and more broadly between art making and ecology. And this is an area that I'm increasingly interested in terms of both my scholarship and my curatorial practice. The speculative utopian nature of Saraceno's project is mirrored in my more recent collaboration with the artist Beatriz Cortez. Cortez draws on her own experience of migration. She left war-torn El Salvador and immigrated to the US in 1989, and an expansive philosophical framework in her creation of a series of handcrafted steel space capsules. She was one of 10 international artists who participated in my 2025 exhibition titled Seeds, Containers of a World to Come, which I co-curated with Berlin-based scholar Svea Braunert. With a focus on the seed, both literally and metaphorically, the exhibition examined issues of fragility, preservation, and possibility in the face of the global climate crisis. Beatriz's sculpture, titled Cholton el Semillero, was one of the works that inspired the exhibition. This work is the third in a series of space capsules created by Cortez, all of which employ seeds as both medium and metaphor to explore issues of migration, movement, and time. Now here I'm showing you her sculpture titled Generosity 1, which is created in 2019, which looks like a satellite. It consists of a geodesic steel sphere with small containers of seeds attached to each panel. The form is a direct nod to the Soviet satellite Sputnik and the beginning of the 20th century space race. It also references our contemporary space race, advanced in part by private enterprise and a search for resources made necessary because of the extractive practices taking place on Earth today. Cholton el Semillero similarly appears like a kind of science fiction film prop. It consists of two large steel structures connected by a narrow tunnel, and the forms recall ancient underground structures called choltunes. Made by the Maya of the lower Yucatan Peninsula, choltunes are huge storage vessels that were carved into the rocky ground that were used as cisterns for drinking water and as food cellars. With her sculpture, Cortez creates, as she states, a, quote, speculative choltun, imagined simultaneously as a carved space under the ground and as a traveling space capsule preserving ancient seeds for the humans of the future. Cortez's seeds offer a note of hope for the future as well as a living connection to a world predating modern colonialism. Her time-bending space capsules act as symbols of gratitude and portals of multidimensional time travel that open onto unpredictable futures. The last project I want to highlight this evening similarly approaches questions of survival and what it means to be alive, but with a much more specific focus on the brilliance and the precariousness of life as it relates to Black experience in the United States. In 2019, I commissioned Los Angeles-based filmmaker and artist Nicole Miller to create an installation at the Kemper, which would become her multi-sensory installation titled A Sound, a Signal, the Circus. Realized in 2020, it consisted of an intricate choreography of sound, moving image, and laser light animation, enacting what the artist described as a kind of ecstatic translation, in which the interior sensory experience of being in a Black body is transmuted into something external and destabilizing. Now, I'm going to show you, Nicole created a 1-minute trailer for the exhibition, and I'd like to show you a little bit of it just to give you a sense of that multi-sensory experience that she created in the exhibition.
You may touch me and play me as you would play.
first learned how to juggle, it was like amazing. And I was so excited to be able to do something like that. The first time I juggled 50 throws with juggling clubs was in my dorm.
Miller's installation at the Kemper built on her previous videos that examine how societal pressures and the violence of racism condition the experience of growing up in the U.S., including how youth are perceived. A 23-channel soundscape anchored the installation, providing the narrative arc for the work and directing the viewer's attention in the gallery. It was composed of recorded and appropriated text, sounds, and music, along with edited excerpts from interviews that the artist conducted in St. Louis in the summer and the fall of 2021. In these interviews, poets, dancers, educators, and teenagers of color shared a wide range of perspectives: personal, political, philosophical, and creative. The participants often drew connections to their own bodies. Miller asked them to talk about their daily lives and experiences, and she always brought the discussion back to the idea of what it feels like to be alive. Participants evoked the body as a repository of experience and histories and a site of joy and trauma. Entering the installation, the viewer is positioned as an active listener and a witness. You're asked to receive these stories while contemplating our own bodies in the space of the gallery. The installation maintained a crucial level of opacity. The bodies that were visible in the installation were not those of the teenagers interviewed, but those of professional acrobats and dancers. They appear across a 3-channel video in various stages of practice, many of whom are preparing for roles in circuses. Miller inverted, this is a key point that she made in the exhibition, was to invert that conventional cinematic hierarchy of image as being primary and soundtrack as supplementary. So she did so in order to sort of loosen these accepted relationships between vision and sound. The inclusion of laser animation served as an additional point of disruption. The lasers included abstract forms as well as select words and phrases derived from the soundscape that continuously shifted in shape, color, and legibility. The overall encounter was intentionally overwhelming. These lasers were very bright, with a visual and emotional intensity that was both captivating and disconcerting. In this immersive, kinetic environment, the sound of voices speaking and the sight of bodies moving through space set up this potential for a heightened attention to one's own body, while provoking fundamental consideration of whose bodies are valued in society, whose stories are amplified, and whose lives are cherished. Now, these are just a few of the many projects that I have had the privilege to realize during my tenure at the Kemper. I am so proud of the multidisciplinary collaborations that they represent, the scholarship that supports them, and the many conversations that they continue to engender. As a curator and an art historian, I have relished my position at the Kemper, this truly outstanding university art museum that serves not only as a repository for incredible artistic achievement, but as a dynamic laboratory for cutting-edge creative experimentation and intellectual discourse on campus, in St. Louis, and beyond. Ken and Nancy, I want to thank you again from the bottom of my heart for supporting all of these many creative endeavors. Thank you.
That was amazing, Meredith. Very impressive. When you get an endowed position, it actually recognizes the potential for the best work to come. I can't wait to see what's going to come. It's going to be incredible. It's already incredible. But congratulations once again for Meredith. Amazing work, amazing lecture. Congratulations to you. Yeah. So for my closing remarks, I created a little manifesto. No, kidding. I really just wanted to say that was amazing, and we are very fortunate to have Meredith here in her role as the senior curator now. That's another promotion, so also recognize that she's now the senior curator of the Miller Lane Kemper Art Museum, as well as the Kranzberg curator. Congratulations again, one more time. Yeah. Okay, and Ken and Nancy, what can I say? We're tremendously grateful for your support, ongoing support. It's made my tenure remarkable. It's been quite an experience Susan's here with me. We've experienced so much of your generosity. It allowed us to do so much of our good work. Susan with Story Searchers and me at the Sam Fox School. And thank you for making St. Louis a great city for the arts. Thank you very much. Yeah. Congratulations to you. Yeah. You are our role models, you know that. So we have a next chapter to think about that. And I do again want to thank Chancellor Martin, your support for the school, your personal support of me, the fun times that we have together. I'm going to miss greatly. You've been a real champion. You've made me feel like everything should go up to the next level, and I think we've done a lot together. So let's thank Chancellor Martin again. Thank you. And I also want to just thank Sabina Ekman one more time. Sabina and I have worked together for this 2 decades, as been mentioned. As I see, Julie Kemper, the Kemper family has been such an extraordinary part of my experience here. And as I said at the beginning, the Sam Fox School is incredible, and its unique structure is with art and architecture and design together, but the Mildred Lane Kemper is a jewel within that. I think as we move forward with a new dean and Charlie White that's soon to come, we're making that absolutely clear as Sabina will also step down in her role as a director effectively January 1 of this next year, and she'll pursue her own work in Berlin with her husband Keith, who's also retiring. So let's congratulate Sabina and Keith. If you're in Berlin, look them up. Finally, everyone, thank you for joining us this evening. I now invite you for a fun reception in the Mildred Lane Kemper Art Museum honoring Meredith and the Kranzbergs. Have a great evening.